Early this week, the Trump administration and Speaker Pelosi reached an agreement to avoid a government funding crisis and provide for our armed forces. In the tough circumstances of divided government, they achieved the kind of deal that our national defense actually needs. The two-year funding agreement will secure the resources we need to continue restoring the readiness of our armed forces and modernizing them to meet the 21st century challenges that face our country. As I mentioned yesterday, I always find it curious when our Democratic colleagues take the negotiating position that funding critical Pentagon missions and providing for the common defense are partisan Republican priorities. They act like only Republicans want a modern, ready military, such that our spending on national defense needs to be matched up with other spending in order to make it palatable to Democrats. Well, in one sense, Madam President, my Republican colleagues and I will proudly say, guilty as charged. Yes, we absolutely prioritize the national defense and the U.S. military. Yes, we prioritize keeping Americans safe. This is the fundamental obligation of the U.S. government. Over the past 2.5 years, it's been a Republican president who has sought to reverse the previous 8 years of decline in defense. It's been Republicans here in Congress who prioritized rebuilding our national defense after the Obama administration's neglect and atrophy. And thanks to the Trump administration's tough negotiating, this deal will secure a larger increase in defense funding than in non-defense programs relative to current law, better than parity for defense. I doubt members need any reminding about why these investments are so critical, but if they do, Madam President, every day's newspapers make the case loud and clear. For years, our adversaries have methodically stepped up their incursions and their aggressions. They want to chip away at the peaceful, rules-based international order that American leadership has helped establish and preserve. Between 2009 and 2018, the Chinese Communist Party increased its military spending, listen to this, by 83%. 83%. Talk about a buildup. The Chinese nearly doubled their military spending in less than a decade. And this is just the PRC's publicly acknowledged funding. These numbers have very real implications. When China gets a leg up in terms of readiness or technology, they're able to hold a greater number of U.S. and allied forces at risk. They're able to push their air and maritime control further into the Indo-Pacific region, increasing hegemonic control and effectively pushing the U.S. and our allies back. So the importance of this funding agreement is not simply our ability to provide for the upkeep and regular maintenance on our military as it currently exists. We're also talking about building the U.S. military of the future, research, development, and modernization, so that our nation and our service members are equipped to keep America safe and project power as necessary for years and decades to come. In my view, this grave responsibility should be a top priority on both sides of the aisle, and this funding agreement will allow us to get it done. I'm proud that it will meet the pressing needs of service members stationed at installations around the country, like Fort Campbell, Fort Knox, and the Bluegrass Army Depot in Kentucky. So the deal will secure sorely needed investment in the national defense, and it contains none of the far-left poison pills that House Democrats had sought, like going backwards on the issue of life or stripping away rightful presidential authorities. In divided government, Madam President, that's what we call a good deal, and the Senate will vote on it before the end of next week.